Imagine getting a message from your daughter in the middle of the night. Just 3 words. I love you. Then something else. Her bank pin. Hours later, her body is found on a beach. Police say there is no evidence of a third party. Now imagine being told that this is an accident. Years later, another black woman disappears. Her body is pulled from the river Thames. Then another and another. A university student is found in the Thames for almost 3 weeks. Nobody connects her body to the missing person report filed by the people who knew her. And in 2026, a Kenyan student disappears after going for an ordinary walk. 5 weeks later, she is found dead in water. So today, we are asking a difficult question. Are these simply separate tragedies, or is something deeper being missed?
Twisted tales in every folder. Truth runs hot while the trail gets colder. Crime dopers, we don't look away.
Hey Crime Dopers, welcome back. I am Wanja, and this is Crime Dopers, where crime meets truth. Today's episode is different because there isn't one crime scene, there isn't one suspect, there isn't even one investigation connecting everything we're about to discuss. Instead, there's a pattern that has alarmed black communities and advocacy groups in the United Kingdom. Women disappear, searches begin, and sometimes their bodies are eventually recovered from rivers, lakes, beaches, or coastal waters. Again and again, questions follow. How quickly was the disappearance taken seriously? How much information reached the public? How long did it take to find or identify the woman? And when a body was recovered from water, was every possible explanation properly investigated? Now, there's a prominent UK advocacy group for Black Women UK, which has raised concerns about what it sees as a recurring pattern involving Black and African women found dead in UK waterways. Community activists have also criticized what they describe as inadequate urgency, limited media attention, and gaps in investigative responses. Now, I want to make something very clear before we go any further. This episode is not claiming that these deaths are all connected. Police have said that there is currently no evidence linking the individual cases, and in several of these investigations, authorities have classified the deaths as non-suspicious, unexplained, accidental, or undetermined. But there's a difference between saying we have no evidence these cases are connected and saying there are no questions worth asking. Because there are, and today we're going to ask them carefully, because behind every missing person poster is a person, a daughter, a sister, a student, a friend, a woman whose family deserved answers. Let's begin with Blessing Olusegun. Blessing was 21 years old. She was a business student. She was also working as a care worker. In September 2020, she was on a work placement in Bexhill-on-Sea. And on the night of September 17th into September 18th, something happened that will leave her family with questions for years. Around 12:30 in the morning, Blessing went out for a walk. According to the case material, she had been communicating with friends and asking them to remain on the phone. Then around 1 a.m., CCTV captured Blessing walking toward the beach. Think about that for a second. It's the middle of the night, the beach is dark, and there's no indication in the available account that someone was physically accompanying her. Then comes one of the most haunting details in this entire case. At approximately 1:24 a.m., Blessing sent her mother a message, I love you. And then she sent her bank pin. Her mother could use it to access her money. What did Blessing believe was going to happen? Was she saying goodbye? Was she simply thinking about her mother? Was she worried something might happen? See, that's the problem. We don't know. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes the message so difficult to process. Because when we look back after a tragedy, ordinary moments can suddenly appear loaded with meaning. But investigators have to resist that temptation. A final message can be a clue. It can also simply be a final message. So, what happened next? At around 6:20 a.m., Blessing's body was discovered on Glyne Gap Beach near Galley Hill. A mobile phone and slippers were reportedly found neatly together around 300 meters away. And that detail immediately raises questions. Why were they there? Did Blessing remove them herself? Did something happen near the shoreline? Did she enter the water voluntarily? Could she have been coerced, or could there have been an incident? These are not conclusions, they are questions, and the official findings do matter. A post-mortem found that Blessing had drowned. At the 2022 inquest, the coroner ruled her death an accident. The coroner also noted that Blessing could not swim. But her family did not accept that this completely answered what happened. And this is where the story becomes more complicated. The police investigation had focused heavily on the absence of obvious external injuries. The case was treated as non-suspicious, but Blessing's family and legal representatives argued that the possibility of third-party involvement had never been completely eliminated. The concern was not simply we don't like the verdict, it was about what happened in those final moments on a dark beach. Could somebody have approached her? Could somebody have forced her into the water? Could something have happened that left little or no visible physical trauma? A family wanted those possibilities properly examined, and an inquest ultimately concluded that the evidence supported accidental drowning. But even the coroner's findings could not answer every question surrounding the circumstances. That distinction matters. Because an accidental death finding tells us what the evidence established, it does not necessarily recreate every second before the death. And this brings us back to our central question. When a young black woman disappears and is found in water, how much investigative uncertainty is considered acceptable? For Blessing's family, the uncertainty never disappeared, and it will not be the last time a black woman vanished and was later found in the water. Now, let's move to London. July 2022. Kaine Williams was 24 years old. She was a fashion blogger from Newham. She had gone out with friends. It was a normal night out until it wasn't. At approximately 3:40 a.m. on July 2nd, Kaine went missing after spending time around Marketplace near Oxford Circus. And then came the search. Friends and members of the public began sharing information. Social media became important. People circulated Kaine's photograph. People asked questions. People wanted her found. 4 days later, her body was recovered from River Thames between Waterloo and Blackfriars Bridge. And once again, the official conclusion did not suggest a larger connected conspiracy, but community activists focused on something else: the early hours. Those critical hours after somebody disappears, because in a missing person case, time matters. The first few hours can mean CCTV is still available, phones can still be traced, witnesses may still remember what they saw, transport records can be checked, people who encountered the missing person may still be reachable, and public appeals can bring information forward. So, when a family believes those hours were not treated with enough urgency, the pain is enormous, because families don't experience a missing person investigation as a statistic. They experience it as a countdown. Every minute means, where is she? Is she safe? Who saw her last? Does someone know something? Could she still be alive? Kaine's case became one of the cases activists pointed to when discussing the visibility of missing black women. And then there was Taiwo Balogun. Taiwo was 53. She was described as a beloved member of her community. She disappeared from London. Her family and community endured a 29-day search before her body was eventually found in a body of water. 29 days. Think about what 29 days feels like when someone you love is missing. Day 1, maybe she's safe. Day 3, okay, something is wrong. Day 7, you're calling hospitals. Day 14, you're checking every possible lead. Day 29, you're still hoping. And then the search ends with a discovery nobody wanted. A body. Water again. And another family asking why. Now, we have to be careful. A long search does not automatically prove police negligence. Bodies can be difficult to locate. Water changes evidence. Such conditions can be dangerous, and sometimes investigators genuinely have very little information. But the concern raised by activists is broader. They're asking whether black women receive the same urgency, visibility, and resources when they disappear. That's a systemic question. And it cannot be answered simply by looking at one case, which brings us to perhaps the most troubling case in this episode. Because with Samaria Ayanle, the problem wasn't only finding her, it was also identifying her. Samaria Ayanle was 19 years old, a first-year undergraduate student studying Japanese and History of Arts at SOAS University of London. And on February 22, 2024, CCTV captured her leaving her student accommodation near Maple Arc in the early hours of the morning. Then something happened. At 8:19 a.m. that same day, a member of the public found a woman's body near Putney Pier on the River Thames. The woman had no identification. Fingerprint checks initially failed, so she became an unidentified deceased person. And here's where the timeline becomes difficult to hear. Samaria's body was found on February 22nd, right? But her identity was not connected to her missing person case for roughly 3 weeks. I know, crazy. Her university did not formally report her missing to the Metropolitan Police until March 8th, according to the material that we are working with, okay? And the Met eventually connected the body to Samaria on March 13th after reviewing body-worn footage from the February recovery. Her death remains classified as unexplained. Now, let's pause here because the question isn't simply why didn't they know who she was? There can be legitimate reasons for identification failures, okay? No ID, negative fingerprints, incomplete information, administrative systems that don't immediately connect separate records. But there's another question. How did the missing person investigation and unidentified body investigation remain separate for so long? That's the question her friends and supporters struggled with because somewhere in London there was a missing 19-year-old woman and somewhere else there was the unidentified body of a young woman. 2 records, 1 person, but the connection wasn't made immediately. Imagine being Samaria's friend. You know she hasn't come home, you're waiting for news, you're checking your phone, you're wondering whether the next call will be the call that says she's been found. Meanwhile, her body has already been recovered, but nobody knows who she is. That is an unbearable thought. And it also exposes something important about missing person investigations. A disappearance does not exist in isolation. There should be systems designed to connect missing people, unidentified bodies, hospital admissions, CCTV, transport records, phone data, forensic information, and reports from institutions. When those systems fail to communicate, the consequences are not administrative, they're human. The source material also notes criticism of SOAS over the delay in formally reporting Samaria missing. The university defended its actions, saying internal steps were taken and citing confidentiality considerations, but the public backlash remained. And whether you place responsibility on the university, the police, the identification process, or some combination of institutional failures, one thing remains difficult to escape. A young woman was found in the Thames on the same morning she disappeared, yet her family and community waited weeks before the body was officially connected to her identity. That is not a small detail. That's the kind of timeline that deserves scrutiny. And then, in 2026, another case brought these questions painfully close to home for many Kenyans. Edna Umbali Omboh was 31. A Kenyan, a master's student, and according to the case material originally from Kitale, in February 2026, Edna was living in Rosbery, Berkshire. On February 1st, she went out for what was described as an ordinary walk, and then she disappeared. No dramatic goodbye, no obvious warning, just a walk and then silence. Her belongings were left behind. Communication stopped. Her family was suddenly living inside the nightmare every family fears. Where is she? Her father, Dr. George Omboh, and other family members pushed for answers. The Kenya High Commission and members of the UK-Kenya diaspora community became involved. The family traveled to Slough police station and pressed authorities to investigate multiple possible lines of inquiry. And then came the long wait. 5 weeks, 35 days. On March 8th, Edna's body was recovered from water in Rosbery, 5 weeks after she disappeared. Now, there's something particularly painful about this case for Kenyan listeners because Edna wasn't just a statistic. She was someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone who had traveled to another country to study, someone building a life, and then her family had to confront another painful reality. Bringing her home would cost money. A crowdfunding campaign was launched within the Kenyan diaspora community to help with repatriation. Her remains were eventually flown back to Kenya on April 17th. She was laid to rest on April 25th in Nzoia County. But bringing Edna home didn't bring complete answers, and that is a distinction we have to make. Closure and answers are not always the same thing. A funeral can bring a goodbye. It cannot necessarily explain what happened. The material says her family pushed authorities to examine her final movements and sought updates on the forensic process, and that matters because when a family is thousands of kilometers from home, communication becomes part of the investigation. They need to know what was recovered, what was tested, what did CCTV show, what was the timeline, what did investigators rule out, what remains unknown. Without those answers, suspicion fills the vacuum, and that brings us to the larger concern. Blessing, Kaine, Taiwo, Samaria, Edna. Different ages, different circumstances, different years, different bodies of water, and no established evidence that these deaths were caused by one person. But enough similarities for communities to ask whether the system itself is producing a pattern. And then came May 13th, 2026. Brighton, 3 sisters. Jen Adetoro, 36, Christina Walter, 32, Rebecca Walter, 31. 3 women from West London, 3 sisters. And now 3 lives ended in the sea. Emergency services received a call at around 5:45 a.m. reporting a person in the water near the Black Rock car park off Madeira Drive. Responders went to the scene. All 3 women were recovered from the sea. They were pronounced dead at the scene. 3 sisters in the same water at the same location, and understandably people wanted answers. But then investigators uncovered something deeply tragic. Their mother, Janice Adetoro, had died by drowning in a Birmingham lake in 2010, 16 years earlier. Relatives said the sisters never fully recovered from that childhood trauma. Now, that piece of information changes how many people view the case. But we do need to be careful because trauma is complicated. We cannot look at someone's past and automatically determine what they intended in the future. We cannot say what was happening inside someone's mind simply because we know what happened years earlier. And investigators have to distinguish between context and evidence. Sussex police reviewed hundreds of hours of CCTV. At the time reflected in our source material, police say they had found no evidence of third-party involvement or foul play. A formal inquest was opened. Post-mortem examinations returned a provisional cause of death as yet to be ascertained. The inquest was adjourned with the next hearing scheduled for October 8, 2026. So this case remains unresolved. And that word is important, unresolved. Not proven murder, not proven suicide, not proven accident, just unresolved. Yet public speculation has been intense. And that is where true crime coverage can become dangerous, because when people are frightened, they look for patterns. Sometimes those patterns are real, sometimes they aren't. Our responsibility is to ask questions without manufacturing answers. And the biggest question surrounding this episode is not, is there a serial killer targeting black women? No. We don't have the evidence to say that. The better question is, why are communities repeatedly feeling that something is wrong with the way missing black women are searched for, identified, investigated, and remembered? That's a question we can actually examine. For Black Women UK and other community advocates, they have raised concerns about what they see as systemic inequality in missing person responses. One issue is what activists describe as adultification and bias. The argument is that Black women may not receive the same level of national media attention or public urgency as some white missing women. And that matters because visibility can generate witnesses. Visibility can generate tips. Visibility can put pressure on institutions. Visibility can save lives. The source material also points to concerns about what activists can call administrative brush-off. Situations where the discovery of a body in water may become a procedural endpoint, particularly when there is no obvious external trauma. But again, let's be precise. Finding somebody in water does not automatically mean they were murdered. An absence of external injuries does not automatically mean police failed, and a group of cases sharing similarities does not automatically mean they're connected. Those are conclusions that require evidence. What we can say is that several cases have left families and communities asking difficult questions. Blessing's family questioned whether third-party involvement had been sufficiently excluded. Kaine's case raised concerns about visibility in the critical early search period. Taiwo's family endured a 29-day search. Samaria's body remained unidentified for around 3 weeks. Edna's family waited 5 weeks before her body was recovered, and the Brighton sisters' deaths remain under investigation, with the cause still undetermined in the material available for this episode. Different cases, different circumstances, but one recurring question: were all the possibilities examined deeply enough? And there are other cases that communities point to when discussing this broader issue. Shukri Abdi was just 12 years old when she drowned in the river Irwell in 2019. Her family maintained that bullying and coercion played a role. A 2020 inquest recorded an accidental death. Then there is the case of Nicole Smallman and Bibaa Henry. Their deaths became a major example of concern surrounding the treatment of missing black women. Their families searched for them themselves and ultimately found their bodies. 2 police officers were later jailed for taking and sharing inappropriate photographs of the victims. These cases are not identical. They should not be collapsed into one narrative, but they help explain why some black families in Britain don't simply accept the words the police are handling it. They want to know how thoroughly, how quickly, and what evidence supports the conclusion. So, crime dopers, what do we do with all of this? We don't jump to conclusions. That's one. We don't create suspects without evidence. We don't turn grieving families into internet entertainment. And we don't ignore legitimate questions simply because the answers are very uncomfortable. If you are in the UK and someone you love goes missing, report it. Don't assume you have to wait. Share accurate information. Preserve messages, photographs, locations, and timelines. And if you believe an investigation has overlooked something, seek appropriate legal or advocacy support, because a missing person is not a minor administrative problem. It's an emergency involving someone's life. And maybe that is a life rule I want to leave with you today. When someone disappears, take it seriously. Don't wait for someone else to care. Ask questions, make noise, keep searching, because every missing person has a story and every family deserves to know what happened. I'm Wanja. This is Crime Dopers, where crime meets truth. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep asking the questions that matter.
Crime Dopers. We don't look away.